Hello! Hi.
How you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Good.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Harvest, where we discuss all things cinema and story, and as we learn, you learn. As we grow, you grow. My name is Xavier Garcia.
I'm Jonathan Garcia.
Hello, Jonathan. This is episode 30.
Yes, it is.
Am I throwing you off?
Yeah, you sounded like a robot there, so I was like, wow.
This is episode 30. We're taking a unique approach to the exploration of script and story. After having we spent 4 weeks, did you know that? 4 weeks talking about actors. And
it's awesome.
It was good. We were trying to dissect, just kind of like how actors break down screenplay, how they, how they study, their observation, their research, their technical preparations. But we're not going to look through the lens and the POV of the DOP.
Oh.
See what I did there?
I like that.
POV of the
Kind
DOP.
of.
The director of photography, and their relationship to the roadmap known as the script. Oh, such wonderful puns await us on this episode. Okay, so I'm not going to call it DOP because that is not the industry acronym. It's just DP. But
DP,
it rhymed.
cinematographer.
All right, so DPs occupy a very sacred space in the creative movie-making process. They are the one individual that is closest to the story being told. They're the first and the most intimate outsider that's receiving what's being created, specifically when they're not just a DP but also an operator. And therefore they become the very first audience member. But because the DP is such a critical and crucial influencer of story, they're thrust into a very unique relationship with the filmmaking process. As an audience, they must be passive in order to receive, but as a DP, they must be active in the modeling of the story. And today we're going to take a look at this dichotomy, as well as the many nuances that go into this relationship between DP and script.
That's
Ready to dig in?
exciting.
Yeah. Cool. Let's stop there for a second and let's just talk about, I'm not even going to get into the notes just yet because right away we talk about like the prep and the process of a DP. But before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit about the DP and how you personally feel as being like the first audience member. Because on any given set, you've got your actors in front of you and they're acting, and you've got the camera that's separating you if you're an operator, if you're a DP, because not all DPs operate, but in indie films, usually the DP is the operator as well,
I mean,
right?
you'll see it sometimes in Hollywood. You'll see Deacon getting behind the
Yeah. I mean, if you can work your way around union rules and all that stuff, absolutely. But in indie filmmaking, 9 out of 10 times, the DP is the operator, and so you've got your actors in front of you that are performing the scene. You've got the camera that's in between you and them, and then there's you going through the eyepiece or monitor, and you're the first audience. You become the very first audience member. I mean, they're acting into the machine that you're holding, and so it's almost like it's going through the machine and into you. Mm-hmm. That's a special, really privileged spot. No one has that spot.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, I mean, other than the fact that most of the times the director is on their monitor
but they're on a monitor, right?
Or a handheld monitor, you know what I mean? And they're either on the scene, but I think that the director is depending on the cinematographer, the DP, to be able to record and record the experience that the audience should have. Yeah. So, for instance, you as the DP are looking through that lens and have to be able to make sure that you're capturing exactly what needs to be captured for the audience's, what's the word I'm looking for? Experience. Yeah, experience.
Now, have you ever felt like when you're looking through that lens that like you're like, wow, I'm really special right now. Like all of this is happening because look, at the end of the day, the actor is very aware of the camera. Like, where's the camera? Like they're acting. They're not going to like have their back to the camera. Like the blocking has settled that, but then like even in the nuances and the small moments of just like blocking where the actor is so in the moment that they're just being, they still have a soft focus to where the camera is, right? And so like all of it is being put to the camera so that the audience members, when that signal gets turned into a visual experience, you're the first one there in that moment receiving that. You know, I don't know. I feel like it's a privilege.
It is a privilege because you're the first one handling the visual. You're handling the movement and the control or the concept of what the world's going to experience. Yeah. So it is a privilege in the sense that, you know, the DP is the one controlling the visual of the film, the purpose of the film. He's controlling the purpose of everything that is being done in production, you know, the footage that's being recorded.
Yeah, because there's so many elements to the story. You know, it's not just the story that's on paper, it's then when that story comes to life in a visual medium, every camera movement, every color choice, like all that stuff, you know, but like at the end of the day, it's what's in the frame, right? It's what's in the frame, and you're the one setting that frame. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I always thought about that, you know, especially just like listening to some podcasts recently, just kind of becoming aware of the position and the space and place that a DP holds, which is even more intimate to the acting and the actors than the director himself, and yet the director works with the actors. I just thought that was unique. To me, I don't know. It was interesting.
I think what's also very cool about a DP is not just the frame and being behind the camera, but controlling light. Because, I mean, as a Christian, I think about, you know, a light bearer, Jesus being a light bearer and bringing light and bringing, you know, the message and the joy of the message out, the story of the gospel. And I think about when you are in a set and you are literally decorating with light so that exactly what needs to be seen on camera is what the audience is taking in, nothing more, nothing less. And when you're shaping light because you can have a light in a room and record it and the scene looks absolutely horrible. But when you're artistically moving light around, you are decorating and you're using light, just light, to tell a story.
Yeah.
And
mood,
exactly.
ambience,
exactly.
tone,
and so
all that.
one of the greatest things, a good DP is not just the person who can be behind the camera, because nowadays these cameras are amazing, you know.
Yeah,
and
you could shoot in
pitch
black.
You can shoot and you know you'll capture some. I mean, if the actors are amazing, anyone could do it, but it's shaping the light to be able to tell the story and being able to artistically, you know, shape and mold and give life to elements and everything just with light.
Yeah. So
that's really cool as well.
Okay, so now let's go a little bit into just kind of the relationship that the DP has with the script, because there's a long love-hate relationship that goes on. I don't know so much hate, but you know, there are hills and valleys in this relationship, and how the DP relates to that document that is the script, right? This blueprint to the making of a movie. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of ebbs and flows throughout the process of creation, or even through the prep process before you even begin to actually shoot. There's a ton that goes into the relationship that the DP has with the script. And it begins with, well, you just got a script, you got to read it.
Yeah.
Right? It's the very first thing. Mm-hmm. You're handed a script, you read it. Now, can you tell me what goes through your mind when you're reading a script, as far as whether or not you choose, you want to do it, you don't want to do it? I mean, set aside the fact that like 9 out of the 10 10 scripts that come to your table across your hands are your own, you know, or they're in-house. But there's those occasional ones, like when you're reading these scripts, what goes through your mind as far as, yeah, this is it, or no, this isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you're told to kind of do a fun read, kind of just read it, try not to be a DP when you're reading it, try to understand it, understand the story, see where it takes you. I mean, really good DPs can't help it. People who love stories will automatically start being like,
default to,
oh man, this would be, I would love to see it like this, and they're writing notes along the script, or, you know. But a lot of times you'll see people who really love the script read it multiple times. I mean, you keep reading and reading and reading because you are trying to get in the mind of the director.
Yeah.
You got to understand what he's thinking, what he wants. I mean, the writer has given us the story, but the moment it is given to someone else, if the writer's not the director, the moment that it's landed in the director's hand, it's his imagination. So you have to look at this, and you have to I mean, you and I mean, we have such a great relationship. So the moment that we're on set, you know, I know exactly how to capture what we've discussed, what we've and
we've talked a lot
Right,
about it too.
And it's a little different also for you and I, because we also are the writers. You know, you and I sit down, we're writing this thing, we're hashing it out, and so all those issues
There's a ton that we've already discussed through the writing process.
So the moment we're on set, it's actually, there shouldn't be much talking, really. It should just be bang, bang, bang kind of going. That's why a lot of people, when they're in our sets, they say it's you know, it's drill
like
sergeants,
it's
military.
Bang, 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 bang.
But you know, it's not like we're yelling at people, get down and turn on those lights. You know,
no.
It's more
just
so we know what we want.
That there's exactly. There's a discipline, there's an assurance, there's a confidence.
Yeah.
And everybody's held to a standard of professionalism because we are holding ourselves up to the highest standard.
Absolutely. And so it's exciting, to answer your question, that the moment you know the script that you want to do is when you're already thinking of shot ideas. You already are. It brings this joy into you. You know, you want to be attached to the project because it connects with you, or the message connects with you.
Okay.
Or you want to make sure it gets out to the world.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to also know your abilities. If you can handle such a script. I know all the time Deacon says that all the movies he's ever done, he didn't know if he could handle them.
Right.
But that's the great thing about a DP, is you enter into these films, into these scripts, and you're constantly growing and reinventing yourself. So,
aside from the story and how you relate or feel about the story or the themes presented in the story, aside from that, are there any external factors at all that play into whether or not you choose to do a script? Like as a DP, you're like, yeah, I'll shoot this, or
yeah, I mean, sometimes
obviously there's schedule, there's all that life schedule,
right?
Is there anything?
Schedule, for sure. There are family situations, closeness, where it is location wise, who actors, people are involved. There's a lot of things, of reasons why you would want to join. A lot of people money. It may pay well. So for me personally, it'll always be a story. For me, it'll always be what the story says, and the message, if there's a message, or if it's just an art piece. It starts there for me.
Okay, cool. So you've read the script, you story, you're hooked, this is it. You've chosen yes, you've said yes. Now you've done the little things where you've read it first just to enjoy, and then you're reading it now to for technical things. You're like, let me go back and let me read this again and let me take some notes. You've timed it, so you more or less know, okay, it's gonna, this, all that stuff. Now the next major step, you have a conversation with the director. Right? And at that point, the conversation is to, do we see this the same? Right? Because we all know you can have the same exact script, two different directors, you get two different movies. Completely different movies. Even if it's written by an Oscar-winning, technically perfect script where everything is there, right? But two directors can look at one script and get a completely different movie. And so it's very important to then talk to the director and say, what's in this director's mind? What's their vision? What's their style? The mood, the approach, because, a film that takes place in the 1800s, right? And you're thinking it's going to be a real gritty, realistic, piece about the human condition, ends up the director looks at it and he's like, no, I saw steampunk,
Right.
And you're like, and all of a sudden you're like, forget it, I'm out, right? So to get on the same page is super important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you guys will constantly be, making sure that, because the DP is in a way handling the imagination of the director, and they have to handle it and bring it in a way to life.
Yeah.
He's got other team members, he's got other crew, but they're kind of piecing this thing together with his visual ideas.
Yeah, I mean, film is motion picture, so it's like that responsibility to making the motion picture come to life falls on squarely on the DP's shoulders. And so the director has this vision, this imagination, this creative, desire with the script that they've read, and now he's going to talk to you about how this motion picture is going to come to life. And so now you're discussing things like tone, style, themes, color palettes, mood, design, even gimmicks. And not that it's a gimmick, but like 1917, for example, shot all on one take. It's not that that's a gimmick. That was an actual choice that was made in order to tell the story. But that's the type of stuff that you discuss. You discuss those things in order to come into agreement. Now, how can, at this point, a DP contribute to the areas of tone, style, theme, color palettes, mood, design, etc.? Like, how would a DP establish tone, for example, with the shots, in this initial conversation? Like, how would that conversation go? Because you're talking about tone from a very technical perspective, the framing of the shot. So what are the types of things that you would say if you're trying to influence the tone or the theme or the color and things like that?
When you're talking to the director and you're discussing a shot, you're dealing with basically something called shot list. I'm sure I'm talking to people that already know a lot of this stuff. But you're devising a shot list, and in this shot list, you are trying to have the camera communicate what the scene needs to say. Like I mentioned earlier, you're taking lighting to shape the feel and the mood, and as well as the tone and feel of the scene. And you're also using movement and equipment to be able to end up bringing it home to communicate, because the camera is also communicating something, always communicating. You may not notice it because it's subtle, but that's the beauty.
So give me an example of a shot and what the shot communicates.
Sure. Okay. So I'm sure a lot of people have seen one of the famous shots in Jaws, or in a lot of Hitchcock movies, where you have this, zoom in at the same time, deep focus shot. As you dolly out,
and
rack focus. Well, that that vertigo shot. That the guy's going in and you're seeing his face come close, but the background's dropping back. That creates some sort of shock, some awe, something just occurred.
It's jarring.
It's very jarring, and it's communicating to the audience that the actor or the scene needs attention. Something serious just happened. When you have subtle pull-ins, you want to, get close, sympathize with the character, or be able to, understand his mood and feel. When you pull back, you're distancing yourself away from him. And slow dolly, pull back. It's like, I'm disconnecting. He's alone. The person's alone in this world, and he has no one to relate with. So.
Or like a 50-50.
Or a 50-50 shot where you have this confrontation where it's basically like this, and the two people are talking, and you're realizing, people who play video games would know this, because, you have this versus, this challenge. So you have that 50-50 shot, which is basically two people. A 3 shot, you have three people walking together, talking, they're discussing, they're together, joint, unified in this plan or in this pursuit. Gotcha. So there's lots of different types of shots. They all have names. Yeah. They all communicate the story just as much as dialogue and the action in the scene.
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. And and oftentimes it's also really dependent on the type of director that you're working with too, and how much they're going to allow the DP to influence those types of things with shot choices. Because believe it or not, there are directors out there that they come and they've got their shot choices. They've got their ideas. They're thinking on that level as well, and especially auteurs, directors that consider themselves auteurs, where they take complete authoritative action over the entire creative process, and they become the author of the film. And we don't have time to get into auteur theory, but needless to say that these types of directors that take kind of the reins and kind of essentially, it's not that they're cutting off collaboration, but collaboration isn't necessarily their primal focus or desire. it kind of stifles a little bit what the DP can bring to the table. Nevertheless, you still, you have a huge responsibility on your shoulders, and just by the fact that you're, controlling that camera and operating that camera, you are influencing the story. And it's great if this stuff is discussed in advance, and that collaboration, the rapport between DP and director is established right off the bat, and that's so important.
Yeah. The DP and the director, they say that when people read books, the reason why books are so fun to read is because people create their own imagination.
Yeah.
When the DP and the director are on the same page, they have the same imagination. Yeah. They are able to envision the story in their minds, and especially when they're in the process of doing the storyboard, they're fully on board with how this thing's going to look.
Okay. So now you've talked to the director, you've had a ton of meetings, and we're going to talk a little bit about what happens specifically during those conversations, because there's all sorts of things. There's storyboarding, there's shot listing. We're going to get to that. Before we even go there, as you're reading the script, I'm sure you're doing a breakdown in your mind, right? Because there is a physical breakdown that happens, and we're going to talk about that as well. But just before you get into the paper, you're reading it, you're probably also thinking about your team. Mm-hmm. You're thinking about, okay, if it's a small indie film, you're probably going to have a small team. If it's a large studio film, you're probably going to have a large team. But let's talk about some of the key players in the DP's department and some of your team members and what they do, especially for audience members that that they don't know. They don't know this stuff. They don't know what goes in to all of the people that are in charge of just the camera department, for example. If you could talk a little bit about some of those key players.
Yeah. Well, when you're in a film production set, a lot of the times the DP is the guy that's kind of leads the crew with all the equipment and all the gears. And for instance, you have camera operators, you have people who.
So what is a camera? So what's the difference? Why would a DP have a camera operator versus himself operating? Well, aside from union rules, we're not going to get into union rules.
Sure, a lot of times you have a guy probably better than you, knows how to handle.
Be stronger.
Yeah, and sometimes even stronger.
Younger.
Younger,
yeah.
Exactly. And you, for instance, I know Shane Hurwitz likes to be behind the monitor. He likes to watch the scene in a video village and just focus on the shot. He has his team that knows exactly what to do because he has created the shot list and everything that needs to be done, how it's done, and they are looking at the list, and everybody in the department knows what they're doing. So the operator is the guy holding the camera and just following orders, and he's capable of doing this. But there are other operators out there, Steadicam operators.
What does a Steadicam operator do?
So a Steadicam operator is solo guy who runs a rig that has a mechanical arm that holds the weight of the camera, and basically what he does is he stabilizes. This is some sort of stabilizing shot. When you're running or when you're want a room that's tight, you can't have all these large equipment, so you want to be able to pull in, pull out. It's really to give mobility and smoothness to the shot, to one person, not equipment.
And today there are so many different stabilization methods. Yeah. There's the Trinity rig now. That's the big thing. There's the Stabilize.
There's simple glide cams.
Then there's the old school Steadicam, which is an actual name. It's not but that's become synonymous with the position. Yeah. So okay. So you've got the Steadicam operator.
People on the shoulder mounts. That's an operator. I know that. You need some strong people to operate the IMAX camera. So you probably have two people on that.
It's interesting that you say that because Hoytman
talks about it.
He does it all the time. So, he just literally throws that beast on his shoulder. Yeah. And he's a big dude. Yeah. He's a big guy, and he just throws the whole thing on his shoulder. And he runs a master class. He was talking a little bit about his master class teaching IMAX filming, and he says that the first thing that students do is, or when they come in, is like they're intimidated. They're intimidated by this IMAX camera. He's like, don't get intimidated by it, you know, like just grab it, just put it on your shoulder, get a feel for it. Sure, you're gonna get tired after a little bit, but just, you know.
Yeah, you can see him in Interstellar when that thing's on his shoulder, and he was just moving around with it behind the scenes. I was like, wow, that thing is massive. And
The sound, the loud sound, apparently is what it's like having a generator right next to your ear.
Yeah. So I mean,
but you can get a strong young operator to handle that for you.
Yeah, I mean, there are people out there that have become masters at operating certain things. For instance, steady operators, drone operators. There's a lot of different equipment out there to give you different types of shots and stabilizations. That's just operators in the production, right?
So,
then you have people in the crew that are involved in setting up and putting things, putting rigs together. You have gaffers.
Well, just the camera department. Just the camera department.
So you have follow focus. So you have first AC, second AC.
And why do you need two?
Well, the first ACs. I mean, focusing. These cameras today, the first AC does that. And so basically what he does is he has his own little monitor, whether it's either attached to the side of the camera or on a stand or in some other location. And he's literally just focusing the shot, you know, so that the actor stays in focus at all times, or he's able to rack focus to the subject or the item that needs attention. You know, a lot of these lenses have a depth of field where, you know, you want to get a nice clean shot of the actor, and so you want to blow out the background if you want to just kind of focus on the scene at hand, or you want a wide open, wide angle lens view of everything in the scenery. So, you know, they open up that aperture so, you know, they can see the whole scene. So there's, gosh, I mean, there's a lot to, but they're very important because focusing either, you know, fast movement is a very hard thing, or even slow movement, you know, slow pull-ins to a shot, and they have to, you know, know the distance between them and the actor, them and the subject. And
they're the ones that measure those distances between the camera and the actors in order to know how much the camera is traveling and the focus is traveling. That's cool.
So that's first AC. Second AC is usually they're a clapper. Basically, they slate, you know. And they also they're kind of the in-between. They're like the bridge between, you know, they handle all the equipment too, you know. So they're when the lenses is taken out, there's this, you know, they're the guys who you trust as well to be able to transfer the lenses into the cameras, as well as the footage and all the stuff to give it to the technical director, the digital imaging tech, you know, the guy who handles all that footage to upload it, which is DIT. And he'll usually kind of just upload everything and take it from the second AC. So the second AC is important. Yeah. You know, he's very important.
So he's not just sitting around.
No, and they're recording everything too. They're recording shots. They're taking notes. They probably have two slates.
Yeah, because they've got all that data, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And they're going through what the camera slate is calling. So he has to write all that stuff down.
He has to write all that stuff down. Yeah.
Okay. So so you brought up the DIT, whom is always like the camera expert, right? The DIT is the guy that is. For example, if you have some sort of technical issue on your, you know, metadata, you know, and importing metadata in order to, you know, kind of for your camera and for monitors and just to have clear communication between all that, your DIT is there. But what else is your DIT doing? I mean, besides, I mean, he's also. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he's also the one that's helping like load in LUTs and look up tables and colors and all that.
I mean,
he's usually they're like a color scientist or someone that like is very technically savvy.
Yeah, him and, along with the data wrangler, they're usually involved. Data wrangler will make sure the footage is organized, all set, brought in, and the DIT is really also along with him. setting up. I mean, DIT could have a big role. I mean, he could be doing dailies and editing along there with probably another editor, and kind of showing him all the footage that's come in and organizing and setting it up along with the editor. So, like, he could be heavily involved in the day of. But a lot of times he's the guy who handles everything, who is able to the footage, handles the footage.
And the wrangler is essentially getting it from camera to hard drives, backing it up, writing all that down for the editors, and getting all of that to the editors, and making sure that everything's organized. Okay.
So a lot of these things, a lot of these departments, they sometimes dabble into each one.
Yeah, especially in an indie set.
Indie set,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. In Hollywood, you got like hundreds of people doing like one little thing, and so it's in an indie set you kind of put your hands
because like in an indie
everything.
set you would never have a video assist operator. You would never have someone whose sole job is literally to set up the viewer for the director. And to set up Video Village for the director, or to set up, like monitors, and to make sure that the monitors are perfectly calibrated too, which is a big deal actually.
Yeah,
the calibration of a monitor so that you can be determining exactly the footage that's coming in. Is like, is it good? Is it clean? What does it look like? But like in an indie set, you don't necessarily get that, right? It's like it's probably like the second AC or the first AC or
even the DP just being like,
himself.
How do you do this thing?
Yeah. And then oftentimes you got a PA or a couple PAs that are camera trainee, and they're training up, and they're the guys that are fetching,
holding things, and just hand over the rig, let him hold it for a little bit.
But sometimes there's a misconception that a PA is just like a glorified like coffee go-getter, gopher. It's like, no, they're training. Yeah, they're getting involved. Sometimes,
especially in our sets, we want to make sure that they actually hands-on. Because I know I've passed over like the big $50,000 cameras over, and then they're like, they're holding this thing. You trust me? I'm like, yeah. You got to feel it. You got to break the ice of the movie world and just kind of get your hands on and play with this thing. And that's kind of how we are. Cool. Yeah, that's how we are.
I can only imagine if I were like, this like high school 16-year-old, and and I'm on even on an indie set, there's this $50,000 Ari, Alexa Mini, and it's all put together. And
but it's funny you say the Hoytman because that's kind of the way we are. Just take it, man. Just play with it. I mean, you've been just setting yourself so apart. At some point you gotta touch it, play around with it. Because that's how, we were kids. We're like, oh, this Ari, I want to play with the Ari cameras, or I want to play with the Red, and it's just like we have our little point and shoot.
Right. And you
like
build this, you put it on a pedestal, and then like you realize once you've handled it, you realize it's just a tool.
Yeah, it's
That's
just
all
a tool.
It's literally just a tool.
Yeah, and sometimes...
And maybe the wrong tool for the job, or the right tool for the job. Don't put it on a pedestal, look for the right tool.
Right.
That's cool. So you've got your team. So, well, chances are, unless you're on a big Hollywood studio, that's not your team.
Right.
It could just be you and two other guys, right? Or three other guys tops in an indie,
especially
in
commercial work as well. You have like just a few. You have your
music,
crew.
video, and commercial.
A lot of times the DP has his crew.
That's true.
And they go everywhere together.
That's right. Okay, so that's actually a really big point that that I do want to bring up. Like in a studio film, the building of a team oftentimes takes different roads, right? Because this is a studio film, and there are union rules that apply on a union set, and even on an independent film set where there are union rules that apply. But like on a studio set, oftentimes the DP doesn't necessarily get a chance to choose everyone. Sometimes those teams get put together by people above their pay grade, right? Like you're gonna be working, like sometimes, they'll say you're gonna be working with this guy, you're gonna be working with that guy. Oftentimes the more experience a DP has, the more he's able to kind of say, no, these are my guys, this is who I'm gonna bring onto the team. But like, it's not like a DP can choose his gaffer, right? But on an indie set, on a small set, if you've worked with a gaffer that you really like, that you get along with, and you guys have worked together a lot, and he's really quick at setting up, rigs and lights for you and stuff, and he understands your vision, and he understands how you like things, and how do you like to soften the light and wrap the light, because you've worked together, and you guys now no longer have to like explain everything. There's almost a shorthand, there's a vernacular that you speak. You could just go You know, and he knows. Oh yeah, you want me to put an egg crate. You know, like you want me to
that
do
means
whatever.
take that thing down.
Right,
It doesn't look
exactly,
good.
exactly. And so on a studio set, like, when we've never done a studio film, so like we're just speaking based off of like our research and what we know. You know, you wouldn't necessarily get that kind of an option, but on an indie film set, like, yeah, you get that option. 9 out of 10 times, you know, there may be situations where you don't, where if you're a beginner and you're being brought into the project, they may not trust your opinion. I don't know, but you get that option.
Yeah.
So oftentimes, though, when studios put that together, studios are hopefully what they're looking for is what are the winning combinations? What are combinations that we know not only one, make a beautiful film, but two, are sure to be a blockbuster success. And over the course of cinema history, we've gotten some pretty awesome combinations of director DPs. The first one I can think of right off the bat, because I'm always thinking from a director's perspective, is Christopher Nolan, right? You got Christopher Nolan and Wally Pfister. And that's when you get Inception, you get the Dark Knight Rises, you get, you know, the Batman movies, or Christopher Nolan, and now he's no longer with Wally, he's now with Hoyt van Hoytma, and that's when you get Dunkirk. And I feel like it's even better films. But then again, that's also a little bit of Christopher Nolan growing.
Yeah.
But you got Dunkirk and Interstellar, right? And so like, and they tend to stay together. They tend, because it's like you build a bond, you build a community with them. You got like the Coen brothers with Roger Deakins.
Yeah.
They've done like 8 or 9 films together, and they're famous for working together, and they put out phenomenal films.
Yeah, and Quentin Tarantino and Richardson.
Yep. That's right. Catherine Bigelow and Barry Ackroyd. They did The Hurt Locker, which is one of, like, you know, that's one of my top 20s. But she also did Detroit, the new one that just came out, Detroit, with that same DP, and she's probably, you know, they're probably growing in their relationship together. You got Alfonso Cuarón and Lubezki.
Yeah.
And you know, Children of Men, one of our favorite, both of
absolutely.
us. One of our favorite. Gravity.
Yeah.
Visually beautiful. Y Tu Mama También. That's actually like real. You know, they did that together. And then, you know, then you've got David Fincher and Jeff Cronenweth. And, you know, you got Fight Club and some, you know, and Social Network, Gone Girl, the girl with the dragon tattoo. And you can see that when they start working together, that there's a visual language that's formed.
Yeah.
You know, and you can tell it's like, this is a Coen brother Roger Deakins film. You can tell, you can see the visual style, and they're usually the ones that are award winning. When you take the great director with the great DP, you put them together, and you've got your Oscar contenders.
Yeah, and you even have directors that elevate, you know, DPs. For instance, you have Villeneuve and Bradford Young in Arrival. I mean, that movie was great, and it really elevated Bradford. I mean, Bradford Young was very talented, but Denis is just a brilliant director, and his style is beautiful. You can see it in 2049 and the lighting. I mean, that was a lot of pressure, and he nailed it with Deacon. So you have people that are good, and then directors can take those DPs to another level.
And sometimes they're both good, but the synergy between the two of them, the collaboration, makes them both better. That's like what we talked about last week, that like you can have an Oscar-winning actor for the bad role and it be a bad film, but you can have an okay or good actor for the perfect role, and it's a great, phenomenal film and character, right? It's the same thing with the relationship between a DP and a director. You know, like, if they can both be good, but if it's the right marriage between the two, they both become great.
Yeah, right. And you have also you have moments like I just thought about this. Where you have new directors and you have amazing DPs. You know, like for instance, you have Angelina who hired Deacon. Or you have, what's his name? Matt Levitique, who did The Star.
Star is Born?
Star is Born, and blanking out. Oh, he's a really good actor. Bradley Cooper. Bradley Cooper, Bradley Cooper, who directed that movie, and delighting the quality. I mean, you have a phenomenal DP. So sometimes
it works the other way around.
It works the other way around, where you have a new director, and you know you hire a good DP.
Yeah, you hire a good DP. Listen, I'm gonna need you so much.
Exactly. And the film is just pulled off brilliantly. Sometimes you do need that actor director.
And that's why sometimes you get DPs that turn to directors because like they realize that they bring something great. That's what happened with Wally Pfister, right? He got to a point after having made these huge blockbusters with Christopher Nolan. He's like, I'm going to start directing. I don't know if it was the right choice, to be honest with you. That's another conversation for another day. Nevertheless, he was great, but he was great with Christopher Nolan. But because he was great, I think in his mind, he was like, okay, I'm ready to direct. And you know what? Maybe he'll make something that's great. But you are absolutely right. A great DP will also elevate a first-time director, which is why it's so important for you directors out there to find yourselves a wonderful DP. And when you have one that not only is good, but you like connect with, just don't let them go. Don't let them go because they are responsible for creating your vision. I mean, they are the person. So that's cool. So now in independent films, you don't necessarily have a studio executive that's making teams, right? Like they're being made by the director or producer, the financier, or like an angel investor, or someone, anyone. Like it could just come organically together because of an idea. Like we've built teams that have come as a result of a community theater group, right? And so there are many ways that these teams can come together. And sometimes, like for example, if you're brought in, you bring your guys with you. And sometimes someone can be kind of given to you, right? Like, hey, Jonathan, like you've got your team that you work with whenever you're DPing a film, and then they can say, I know you've got your team, but check this guy out. Let me put this guy into your team, and you bring him along or her along. And it's those times where, for those of you that get brought into like a set for the first time, like be excellent, be good, be someone that's like exciting to work with, someone that is positive, that is looking for solutions, that is eager and enthusiastic to be there and is thankful to be there, because who knows, you could literally at that moment be in your job interview and become part of that team and be brought into that team. Every opportunity that you're on a set is an opportunity to like be on your next set. So that's just a little pro tip. Cool.
Little tip ahead of the tip.
Yeah. So be excellent. All right. So now the process of the DP and their team. So first thing you've got the script breakdown. Jonathan, what's a script breakdown?
Oh boy, yeah. So basically, you are creating. You're going down the script and you are marking the time and length of shots, and you are trying to visually see. You are trying to write down visually how the movie is going to look. So you're breaking it down. Gosh,
like the little lines and the squiggly lines and all that
exactly.
stuff.
You mark a line down and you try to figure out how long that shot is from top to bottom.
Right. And that line represents a camera, or
that line represents the length of the shot.
lens?
Just the length of the shot. The squiggly is where the dialogue is happening.
Okay.
How far that, if the shot goes through dialogue, then you have that squiggly line going through dialogue. There's a lot of videos out there that show this stuff. They have Filmmaking does a really good job of showing how they do their stuff. I mean, some people do things a little differently here and there. They'll add notes. They'll have questions on their script breakdowns.
Instead of you doing what's already been tutorialized out there, is there anything unique that you like to do that most people don't do for your script breakdowns?
I like to kind of overload a scene with shots and kind of break down which one does the best job. So if I say, I go down the list and I say, in this shot I could do a drone because the drone will say this, I could do this and it'll say that, and so I'll have a lot of shots written down on just one, different angles, different types of shots in that one shot, and kind of just slowly narrow out which one
in conversation.
In conversation, or just personally be like, no, this one says it the best. So it's a way for me to kind of...
It's like you're dialoguing with the script. It's like you're talking to the script. You're like, how are you going to show me this shot?
Right.
Okay, you're from the... No, this one says it.
There's
a back and forth.
Because a lot of times you're reading the script and there's a shot in your mind. You're like, this is so a drone shot. This has to be a drone shot. Right. But you never considered the hundreds of different types of shots that are possible to tell the same thing. Right. And probably more cost effective as well. So you have to really think like that as a director.
Yeah.
You have to try to expand your ability to see the scene spoken differently.
Yeah.
But the message is kept.
Have you ever like gotten to a point where I'm sure there've been situations where when you're breaking down a script, you're like, okay, I could tell this with these two different shots. I could do it with this one. I could do it with this one. This one's going to cost more money. This one's going to cost less money. But I could go either way. Has there ever been a situation where you're like, there's only one way to tell this shot?
Yeah. So I would say the best type of filming is when you say everything that you need to say in the least amount of shots. Because, for instance, I remember in Sicario, there's a long shot after they get out of the Mexican border, and you have all the guys, all the tension shot, and the moment they arrive to their hideout area or wherever it was in the movie, it was a long distance shot for like 30-40 seconds. The argument was far away, and and they're just complaining, and they're like, what the heck was that? And she just stands there, and they all walk away, like they don't really look at him, and we're distant away from her because she's alone, she's confused, they're in their routine, this is every day, and it's just a long take, and for me it said everything that I need to say. I was just bombarded with so much suspense that I personally needed to get away just like her. So the DP knew that
Deacons.
We needed to.
We
needed to. This is what she feels like.
Yeah. And so that did so much. It didn't just. I mean, it told you the story, but it also told you the emotions of the character, but it also put an emotion in you.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
And that's what a great shot choice does. And so you say that sometimes you'll start with many of them and you'll deduce it.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's like, no, it's only this one.
Yeah. So I personally feel like we really did a very good job in Underground, especially on the outdoor scene.
Yeah, the outdoor scenes had no coverage.
Yeah.
Everything was, this is the shot that we're doing.
This is the shot, yeah. Because everything was told with those 4 or 5 shots.
Well, I guess there was the one moment of coverage that we did coverage when we did the when they're looking at each other and then they go to shoot right before they go to shoot. But you're right. You're right. You're absolutely right.
So if you see it, it's on YouTube. It's a short film that we did, and I think that one was shot very well. And that's kind of the idea that it's you have a lot when you're breaking down the script, but you get rid of everything that is repetitive, and you choose the few, if not one shot that says everything that you need to say.
Cool. Moving on. We've got so much to cover.
Yeah.
So something that we do that not a lot of people do, in fact, very few do. It's very common in television. In fact, it's necessary in television. It's a must in television, but not in film. It's rare. Is like a story Bible, a lookbook, or a vision board.
Yeah.
Now, vision boards are more common in films. You see those every once in a while. Sometimes people will do it on Pinterest and stuff like that, or they'll have an actual vision board, or like a lookbook. They'll create a Google Doc with a lookbook. But we take it to another level, and we actually turn almost every short or feature that we're working on into a story Bible. We talk a little bit about that, just a little, because we talked about it in the past, but just the reason behind it.
Please, you add to it. So we want to make sure.
Well, from a DP's perspective, just from the camera perspective.
Yeah, what we want to do is, again, we know that there's a lot that's been done out there, that there's kind of no reason to. If there's a technique that we know says something, we use it. And a lot of times what we do is we're digging through the internet and finding elements, shots, color corrections, color gradings, LUTs, things like that.
Stuff that inspires
the story and will best tell a story. You'll see simplest things as like a wall being red in a shot says a lot different, says something completely different than a yellow wall on a scene. So you will have, a lot of these elements in this lookbook to create the mood, the feel, and the story, and
all
the tone
of
of
that
the
stuff.
structure.
And for us, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's also about communication.
Yeah.
I think that if everybody has access to this document, I feel like we're all on the same page and we all know this, then we're all making the same movie.
Yeah, absolutely. The moment an actor looks at this, they'll know, I feel it already, and I see it already.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of times what people say when they see it.
Cool. So the next thing that we do is location scouting. Now, why is location scouting important for the DP?
Well, without a location, it's hard to vision how to move around the space.
Right. So do you think DPs should go on location scouts, or do you think that should be something that like a photographer does?
No, absolutely. Yeah. Without a doubt. I think the DP should be at every location.
Because sometimes a director may not, but a DP, you're saying has to.
I mean, personally, for me, I would say has to. I know that there are other DPs who kind of are so well educated in their equipment and what they have and their team and their communications that they could send somebody a proxy and be like, go. Yeah. Or they could just trust their location.
But you need to be.
But personally, for me, you need to feel the space as well. You need to hear the sounds it makes. You got to step, walk around, touch, feel, see where lights could go. How things would bounce in the room.
Yeah.
You need to take 360 shots. You need to take photos like crazy. Do you take video? You gotta, sometimes even bring the actor if they're available with you. Sometimes I know that. Sorry, today I'm blanking.
Well, we did that. We did that for Underground.
Yeah.
So put the actor inside the space. I had an idea already of what the blocking was going to be like, and I was just like walk around this space and just get a feel for what this is going to be like. We did it like a month out. In a month when we're actually inside the space. So but you had a better example, I think.
No. Gangs of New York actor, phenomenal actor.
Danny
Day-Lewis has gone on location scouts with the team, and they've been like, I need to go and feel and experience. And sometimes it's good because you can record them in the environment. Yeah. You can see how light hits their face, because people's faces are shaped differently, and light hits skin. Women, there's certain lenses that look great on women versus men, and so you have to see how the environment will look on the camera.
Yeah, so and you inspire the character. This is something interesting that happened when I went on location scouting for Underground. There was one of the days when we went to New Bedford, and we had a kind of a big team that went with us. Alana, who used to be the producer for this podcast, she went. Molly, who was an associate producer for the film, went, and Arissa, who was an actor in the film, went. And while we were there and we were touring some of the locations, we were able to sneak into a tour of the Whaling Museum. And it wasn't something that was planned. It was just something that ended up happening because of the connections that we had made. And as a result of that tour, she received some insight about life as a woman in 1800s New Bedford, Massachusetts, that impacted her in a way where she made character choices as a result of that. And then when we went into the space, the things that she had heard in the tour started to come to life inside the space. And so now she's had this experience as Arissa, the researcher, actor, trying to become character inside a very specific space, and it has now started already the creation process, and I was able to see that and see the parts of the locations that really spoke, to her, and be like, okay, this part of this area is really like what feels like home to her. Yeah. And so I'm going to use that to my advantage when I block it, so that because that's where she's comfortable. Right. And that happened.
And you can tell an actor, when they're in the set, you can see, oh, this space, the textures of it just don't match well with her personality and who she is. And so there's so many elements in that.
And interestingly enough, I had a very interesting situation with Tommy, who played, her husband in the short, who never got to see the set prior to it. But then when he went in, as a result of his relationship with her, he could see where the comfortable area inside the home was. Mm-hmm. It was very interesting. It was a very interesting thing that happened as a result of location scouting.
Yeah. Cool. Sometimes you even want to mention key grip scaffers. I mean, these guys are They have to find blueprints of where lights are going to go, power, all these
You have to
different things.
cut a hole in the roof.
Yeah, a rig here, there, things like that. So you don't want to sometimes be the only guy in your department there, because there's so many things that will involve a particular shot that you need your crew to be there to kind of think of ideas on how to handle a small location,
Right.
that might be too hard to do a shot.
You've got your location, you've scouted it, now you've drawn your set designs and your drawings, and a lot of that is also connected to like the production designer and the art department and working together in tandem to create these things. But you've got your set, you've got your blueprints of your sets, you've got your location scouted, and now you're creating your top downs.
Yeah, top down kind of drawing the blueprint, or the blueprint of the set, so you know where the lights are, you know where the actors are moving and blocking, you know where the cameras will be, you know where the sound equipment will be, so that everyone knows what the shot entails of. There's good programs out there, there's cheap programs out there that actually talked about Shot Designer. Shot Designer. Yeah, and we've talked about that as a tip in the past, but we'll bring it back in this one because it's very important. But Shot Designer, it was actually a friend of ours, Andrew Howell, referred that to us a few years ago.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
Just
you checked out Shot Designer?
Yeah, because we always drew everything, and we always, Thank
you, Andrew Howell.
Yeah, we always kind of just put all the stuff on paper, and I'm
not
a drawer, you're killing yourself, just do this. Yeah. And it did, and it sped up my process. I was able to focus on other stuff.
Is it free?
No. I don't know if it's free anymore. I think it's like $30. It's not that expensive. It's pretty cheap. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, cool. They have other cool stuff that I've mentioned in the podcast before.
So you've created your top downs, which is basically a bird's eye view of your set and your actors in it, and the lights, plot, and your grid, and how that's going to affect them. But that doesn't always tell the story how it's going to be visually pulled off. And then there's the phase of
storyboard. Yeah. So location's huge, because then you'll know visually how the location is. You'll be able to put it into the storyboard. The storyboard really brings to life everything. It's the pre-visualization, previs of the film.
Of the movie, yeah.
And there are other things that outside of storyboard help to pre-visualize the movie.
You can make animatics and things like that. Yeah, absolutely.
You can do 3D motion graphics stuff like Cinetracer by Matt Workman, and there's so many other things that you could do. But really, storyboard is the key. Yeah. You need your storyboard. It's quick, it's easy, it's something that everyone can see and quickly visualize what it is.
Yeah, it's great to tell everybody this is what we're going for. Now, there are some directors, for example, that like to storyboard the entire film. Like the Coen brothers are famous for just like storyboarding everything. Yeah. But then there are some that are like, I've got my shot list, I've got top downs, I'll just storyboard the really complicated scenes. Where do you fall in that spectrum?
Well,
and why?
What we've done before is we've pretty much storyboarded every scene.
Yeah.
And because, again, it is so important to pre-visualize everything. Just previs everything, because it is better to pre-visit and have an idea and think on the fly than to not previs everything and think on the fly and time and money escaping you.
We compared it to like training, right? Like when you're training for track, for example, like there's a ton of technique work. You're doing your A skips, B skips, C skips, marches, karaoke, all that stuff, constantly, training. When you go on the day of the race, you're not thinking about, I've got a claw with a B skip. No, it's like you've done it so much, you've done so much previs and so much prep, you let it go now, and you are prepared in case anything were to happen, but you're equipped.
Yeah, there'll be happy surprises when you previs versus, long disasters. Right? I didn't know I needed a generator. And it's for those indies, I didn't know I needed a generator here. I didn't plan because I didn't know that this shot needed. It could be a disaster. Yeah. So. Take the time, previs, look into Cinetracer. I know it's on Steam.
It's on Steam now?
It's on Steam. I think that's the only way it's been on. It's on Steam and allows you to 3D visualize the scene with lights. It's really cool.
Yeah, and then once Cinematography Database releases all his, he's doing is he doing Cinetracer?
Yeah, that's him.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. So now, you've got a storyboard, or you've gone all out and you've created an animatic, which is storyboards that have come to life with motion, sound. Even sometimes actors will say some of the lines and voices and things like that. It depends on how extensive you want to go. There's some pretty cool animatics. Actually, if you Google or YouTube search the animatics for Tony Stark, it wasn't Avengers, it was Iron Man, but the one with the Mandalorian, which one was that one?
Could have been
the one where his whole house gets destroyed. There's some pretty cool, if you Google it and you YouTube it, you can find some really awesome animatics. And see how that stuff like helps, because like when you watch that and then you watch the movie, you're like, oh wow, they've already created the whole movie. It saves you time, it saves you money, big time on money, because you're no longer like creating extra. You know exactly what you need to take, the angles that you need to take. It's a really cool thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, so now you've got a shooting schedule has been given to you. You're reviewing your shooting schedule. You're coming up with your day preps.
Well, the shooting schedule, once you have the shot list, you hand that over. Right. You've got
you've got a first AD that's working with a line producer to create a shooting schedule.
Right.
And you're very integral in that process, because you're saying, look, here are all the shots, here are all of the scenes, here's how this is breaking down, and that first AD is building this with your line producer. And so now that you've got this, now you know, okay, this is the equipment that I need. And so now you're making your equipment tool acquisition, camera lenses, camera tests. Yeah. You got to test your lenses. You got to test your cameras. I mean, talk very briefly about that process.
There's a different tool for every project. Everything needs to make sure that you are not using something just because of the fact that it's what everyone else does. You have to make sure you use the right tool to tell the right story. Yeah. And a lot of times, the biggest thing that does that is lenses. There's so many lenses out there, and they all visually show different things.
Yeah, some have aberrations and things.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. So to keep it short is you have to go to a local rental house, and most of the really good ones will let you do it. They'll go in there and say, can I just test a few camera lenses because I have an idea for this film, and they'll help you.
They really will.
Yeah.
Most places are really cool. We're really blessed here in New England to have Rule down the street. I mean, we're in Medford, and Rule is literally up the street. Rule
before, and Lens Pro to Go.
And Lens Pro to Go. In Concord, they've been really cool. They actually let you play with a whole bunch of different lenses.
They were trying to find.
They were trying to find some really old Russian lenses.
Yeah, Tony was awesome. I ended up working with Tony, and he's like, dude, go in there and
have a good time.
And so
most rental houses, if you're serious and they see that you're serious and you've rented from them before, they're really cool about allowing you to come in and test and do some camera tests and stuff like that.
And Paul, the owner, is like super chill.
He's a really cool
awesome
guy at Lens Pro to Go.
Awesome guy. I mean, I first go to Lens Pro to Go because, a lot of times with the indie films, we have a long
relationship with them too.
With the indie films that we've done in the past, I mean, they have everything we need.
Yeah, and they've been super helpful. They go above and beyond. They literally bend over backwards to help you to help us out. And then Rule's kind of the bigger rental house in the area. Yeah. They deal a lot with a lot of Hollywood films and stuff, but they're really cool too. And they do a ton of free tutorials and teachings. They'll bring people in and they'll talk about like lighting. They'll do an entire like masterclass, and a lot of that stuff is like just outreach for the community, and it's pretty cool. You should check out like local rental houses because they've got all sorts of events and things like that, and they can help you if you're a DP to just like learn the tools. Yeah. So cool. So you've done that. You've done your camera tests. You've done your testing of equipment. You've got your equipment list. You know how you're going to shoot this thing. You've got your production meetings now where you're going to meet with the bigger team. It's not just the director. Now you're meeting with, like the production designer. You're meeting with gaffers. You guys are just kind of talking about how this thing is going to be executed. And then finally, you've got rehearsals where you've got to rehearse sometimes some complicated scenes. Complicated maybe VFX shots or stunt shots or stuff where there's like fire or things like that, or complicated blocking, and you do your rehearsals with the DP actually gets time to rehearse also with the camera if there's a long tracking shot, and you've got to rehearse the track, things like that. And then finally, after all of that, filming begins.
Yeah, and it has to be that way. If you want a successful production, if you want people to take you seriously, you have to go that route. You have to take your time to do all of that before you even get behind the camera and start recording.
That's a lot of responsibility behind the DP. That's a lot. I don't know. People often they see the guy with the camera. They see the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
They don't know everything that's underneath. All of that has happened before they've even gone to do a single day of shooting. That's a ton. And it's not just the DP. Every department head is doing it.
They have their own thing.
List.
Absolutely. They have their own thing that is dependent on the DP and vice versa. So they all kind of work together. You have the production designer who is instrumental to the visual element of the sets and everything like that,
the art and all.
So
that,
you're working as a DP, you're working directly with him and how the scene needs to be lit and all these different things. So
it's interesting because no matter how much you prepare, no matter how much you plan, no matter how perfect it is on a film set, it's like Murphy's Law is king. It always rules. Whatever can go wrong will go wrong. The way that I see Murphy's Law is like a horror film. Like in any horror film or like a slasher film, the bad guy that's got the knife, he's always gonna come after. He's relentless. No matter how many times you try to stop him, he's relentless. He's coming at you until he's got you cornered. It's like the Geico commercial. Like, why don't we just get into that running car? It's like it's always gonna get you because no matter what, somehow you're just gonna end up hiding behind the chainsaws.
Right.
But the cool thing about having gone through that process, you said it best, is that now you've got in you tools to navigate Murphy's Law. So now Murphy's Law is no longer errors and disasters. They're actually opportunities for creativity. Right.
Yeah, exactly. They're beautiful mistakes, or I think there's a better saying for that.
Happy mistakes. Happy occurrences.
But you get the point. I mean, you get
beautiful coincidences, happy coincidences.
Yeah, where now you have this situation where it's really that new road out of the hundreds of roads that you've created to try to tell this story and organize and fix and make sure if this happens I'll do this, if that happens I'll do that, and so you have been able to build enough confidence to know how to handle, and that also takes a lot of experience just doing a lot of movies and knowing when things happen. A lot of times it's usually the same thing. The something runs out of battery, or the footage is full, or the lights burst or break, or a rig of breaks or snaps or falls, or or gone missing, or what I mean. Exactly. So it's like a camera explodes in a car, and so it's like
it can it doesn't. Something always goes not according to plan. Something always goes not according to plan.
For us, I remember for us, I'll quickly say one scenario. We had I devised I maximized the potential of a GH5. I remember we were filming and we had rigs and equipment and all these things that were attached to it because, we wanted to give it a cinematic look, but at the same time we wanted to give it, have a
kind of like Shane Hurlburt, where he uses to give it kind of that not.
It was more of
a realism,
right? It was like an approachable, realistic, if you and I were to make a movie kind of thing, or older times, really something that is whatever. The point being is, we're recording, and because the rig I created, nothing was all from the same company. It's from different companies.
Yeah.
The moment that battery went out, in mid-recording, it lost footage because it was literally as if it was powering out a hard drive while transferring over footage.
Yeah.
And so we're going to the DIT. He's like, "Oh, so did you guys film today?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's all right there." What do you mean, this card?
Yeah.
And so that was.
And
we had to. Find a way to tell that story
Right.
To the point where we even got rid of it and used it and adjusted the story to make it all work.
That's another story, but yeah, but you bring a good point, what you just said there. Because what we ended up doing, we had to pivot, we had to shift, right? And we had to become creative. And because we had planned so much, we were able to take what may have seemed as something going unplanned, wasn't necessarily wrong. We turned it into an opportunity to be creative, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Now, like, not always when something doesn't go according to plan is it wrong per se. It could be that circumstances have just brought up unforeseen challenges, and I call those new opportunities, right? It's like these are new opportunities that need to be addressed at that moment.
Yeah.
And creativity is the synthesis of preparation and opportunity. When you've prepared, and a new opportunity presents itself, and you're prepared, but this opportunity comes. When those two things come together and you react and you act and you do something, that's like, boom, creativity is happening.
Yeah.
Something new is happening. That's the moment of art. You know, it's like when you've got the brush in your hand, you know, and you're giving that stroke, and that's just how I see like art is now happening. It's no longer the technical aspect of filmmaking. It's now like when the problem solving and your subconsciousness about everything, every training and all of that you've put in there is now coming together, and you're giving a new idea, you're giving a new solution, and it's artistic.
And sometimes it doesn't have to be a mistake or an error. Sometimes it's just, you know, you see something you just didn't see when you were doing all your previs, and it's like, this is just 10 times better than what I had written down. Take the opportunity with what is better, what is more creative, what tells the story best. Don't settle with just your notes, you know. It's always better to do, you know, what tells the story best.
Cool. Let's stop there. We're only halfway through our notes.
Oh, wow.
And we're already at an hour and about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
5-10 minutes. So let's stop there, because my next question was, how as a DP do you handle planned versus unplanned situations? And we're going to get into a really cool discussion, but we're going to save that for next week.
Yeah.
So this DP conversation is going to carry over. I didn't think it was, but it definitely is.
Okay.
So let's stop there, and let's just go to our creators tip of the week. Did you see how many notes I just had to scroll by? There's a ton left. Creators tip of the week. I'll go first.
Okay.
I had an awesome conversation. You know, like as a filmmaker, something that I personally love doing is just observing people. And I was observing someone whom like works in this area, just an awesome, just dude, just a cool guy, really fun person, and just watching. He's a instructor at a nearby dojo at Extreme Ninja, and just finally just sparked up a conversation because I know that he's been in this area for a long time. He's well known in the area, and I was just like, I wonder if he's done stunt choreography, or if he can do fight choreography. And I'm just thinking about films, and I just went to and I started a conversation. I mean, he's been in the movie Kingdom with Jamie Foxx. Like, I just found out all this wild stuff. But he wrote a book, and I know you're giving me this look like, okay, how is this a creative tip of the week? No, the book is awesome. The book actually talks about, it's called, you know, Life on the Mat. I want to make sure I've got the right title now. Now I'm second guessing myself. But his first name is actually Ninja.
That's awesome.
His actual name is Ninja.
That's
Ninja
legit.
Nguyen. What's that?
I said that's legit.
And he's he wrote a book. And let me find it. It's right here. Yes. Step on the Mat. Life Lessons of the Ninja. And what's really cool about it actually is that it's not just about like how to conduct yourself as a martial artist. It's actually life lessons about it's actually taking martial arts and explaining life lessons about and how to apply it to yourself as a human being and as a creative, because martial arts is a creative art. You know, it's about movement, and it's about discipline, and it's about a lot of things that we talk about in filmmaking. I was really impressed just him talking about his life and where he came from Vietnam during the fall of Saigon, and him, you know, just like on a raft as a refugee, and how martial arts helped him to achieve, you know, his life as a father, as a businessman, you know, as a martial artist, as a husband, you know, just a ton of stuff. But the steps in his book break down the steps of how one should even conduct themselves in a film set.
Wow.
It's really cool. I'm going to share it with you because I want you to read it. I'm reading it now. I'm on the second chapter. He has an entire chapter just about what it means to bow. Like when you enter into a dojo and you bow before your teacher, and how like we bow into circumstances and situations, to meaning that like we are becoming committed, we're showing respect to it, and we're staying committed to the choices that we make. And it's really cool. So I don't know, for me it was like inspiring me from a creative perspective, because it's inspiring me to become an excellent filmmaker. So the title of the book, you can get it on Amazon. It's called Step on the Mat, Life Lessons of the Ninja, and it's by Ninja Nguyen. And I'll have that in the show notes. Yeah,
I like it.
it's my creator's tip of the week.
I like it.
What you got?
I didn't have anything.
Oh!
Like you said, once you start going, a tip will come. Well, I don't have an app. I usually have an app or something
Usually
to
got something
offer.
really
Yeah, but you know, this is really a tip. You know, in the sense of like, you know, an app is just an app. I'm offering you something. A tip to take with you is when you are shot listing, never, ever, ever say to yourself, because I don't have that equipment, I can't do that shot. Never limit yourself with the equipment that you have. If it's a drone shot, write down a drone. If it's a crane shot, write down a crane. If it's a car mount, write down car mount.
And then if you can't get it, what happens?
You know, because you have written it, when you are creating the shot, you will devise a technique that will be able to perform that shot.
Okay.
Once you write something down, you force yourself to try to get the shot the way that you've written it, because you know, and the director has come in agreement that that is the best way to do it.
Cool.
You know what I mean? That's the best way to tell a story.
To tell that shot, that
exactly.
story, yeah.
So it's always better to put it down, but never limit yourself.
Yeah, don't right off the bat say, "Oh, I can't tell the story the best way possible because I don't have that equipment."
Right,
Put
exactly,
that down.
exactly.
Yeah.
Because
Cool
you
tip.
have by saying that, you've officially said that I can't tell the story
you've
the way it should be
compromised
told.
the story.
You've
You've compromised the
you've-
story.
exactly.
So if you need a helicopter, write down helicopter.
Write down helicopter. Exactly.
I love it.
You never know. You'll just
never know.
You skydive and hope that the scene is happening in front of you. You know what I mean?
Maybe both.
Maybe both. Exactly. So that's really the tip. Is just there's
I love it. No, that's a really good tip. That's actually a legit tip. That's a good creative tip.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining The Harvest. Our show producer is Chelsea Cowie. Our content contributor is Hans Padilla, which is really cool to have him on board now. To support The Harvest, you can visit our Patreon page, patreon.com/The Harvest Podcast. And if you've got any quick questions that you want to hit me up on Twitter, you can hit me up at xgarcia.
At Jonathan Harvest.
And for any longer questions, info@mountharvest.com or mountharvest@gmail.com. Both are fair game. You can shoot to us anything at all. I actually got a couple of cool questions as a result of the last podcast, which we don't have time to answer them now, but I will in the next one. Cool. Thank you guys so very much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed.
Yeah. Oh, and please slap that subscribe button. Share and like, please. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.